We just stepped on their face with a hobnail boot and broke their nose. The way to the end zone, and Georgia is going to conquer the Crimson Tide.
Told him, how about them fucking dogs? That's what I told him.
Hope it didn't take that long again. Go Dogs.
Go Dogs. Go Dogs. It is the 100 Sanford podcast. We are back in the building. We got Super G. What's going on, Big George? You on mute, bro. You on mute.
I'm on mute, man. Everybody on mute, like Beyonce say. You know what I mean? But I'm back in here. I'm off mute. We took care of business. You know, this past weekend? This past weekend took care of business. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
As expected. You know what I mean? Given the circumstances. You know, but you know, under different circumstances, I still think there have been a similar outcome. Just looking, them boys was ready, man. Them boys was fired. Them boys was fired up. Like I don't think anybody would beat them that day. You know, it'd been a tough task for any opponent that day. Them boys was ready to play, and they looked like it. They look well prepared, and like from top to bottom. When the starters came out, they didn't slow up.
Yeah, they look fresh. They looked prepared. They looked like they were coming in there with bad intentions. You know what I'm saying? Like they wanted to take out all their hatred, all their pain, all their anguish, everything that they felt that they lost by going for a three-peat. They wanted to take it out on Florida State.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, and it was, I feel bad for Florida State. They wanted to sit a bunch of guys, a bunch of guys wanted to opt out, guys with injuries, things like that. I understand. But there's a big difference, and this goes to show you what the difference is between programs. When you start saying, okay, we're an up-and-comer, when you start saying we're back, when you start saying we're there, no, there's a big difference between being back, being there, and then being able to back it up. Because if you remember, even with Kirby a few years back when he was saying, look, he never said we're there. Dog Nation was saying we're close. But he kept telling people we'll be back. And when you say we'll be back and you're a coach and you say that, it goes to show you what he knew he had in the stable, what he was preparing, what he was building. And he knew that for the long term, this team was going to be where it is right now. Back-to-back national champions. As of right now, today is January 3rd, we still back-to-back national champions. But it goes to show you where this program is right now, because it's at a level most programs shouldn't be able to do what they just did on December 30th, George.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you just lost your SEC title game. Alabama's playing in the college football playoffs. You would have thought that they would have had a ton of players opt out of not playing in this game. Them jokers decided to play. The only ones that didn't play was what? Brock? I think Brock and Mims was the only two that didn't play.
They had a right to not play, dealing with trying to get be 100%, for the next few months with the NFL draft coming up. It was just real. It was real impressive, man, that those guys decided to play. Even those guys, didn't take long for them to I guess declare for the draft, and which means they knew what they wanted to do headed into their game. And they still came out. They still came out and balled out. And it's kind of like a farewell. Like they all played great. All the guys that left played great. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was just really great to see. I enjoyed watching those guys put on for the Dogs, man.
So I got a question for you, George, because I mean you were in scouting after your football career. Florida State didn't have a bunch of guys play. You're a scout. You're scouting throughout the year. You're scouting guys throughout throughout their season. You're calling people. You're finding out what this kid is like. Does it matter for a kid to opt out? And as a scout and as an organization, would they be looking at the situation saying, okay, what type of personality is this young man? What's your thoughts?
I think it's all about the tape for me. The tape, you got the tape. These guys that opt out, they still have a whole process to go through, and there's plenty of time for teams to get to know these guys, and I think it would be disadvantageous to try to peg a guy and just pin a certain attitude on the guy just based on his decisions about his future and his career. One of the first ones to do this thing was Christian McCaffrey, and I think all 32 would take him immediately. I know he has some pedigree, but he's still his own man, and he decided to not play on their bowl game, and he's had an amazing career, and I imagine he's a good guy, was a good kid at the time, and so I wouldn't put too much in opt outs and whatnot, because you still have a long time to get to know these kids.
Okay, so let's reverse it. What do you put into it? Do you put anything into a guy like a Bullard, like a Lassiter, like any of these guys that said, you know what, I could opt out, but I am going to play? Do you put anything into that along with your evaluation?
You do think about it. I imagine I would think about it as an evaluator, because it screams, I love ball. You know what I mean? And you want guys. What you want guys at that level? You want guys that love football, really at any level, because there are some outside things that come with playing football that a lot of guys like, but they don't necessarily like football. You know what I mean? They don't necessarily like the work, so, when you got guys that didn't opt out, like on Georgia's behalf, those are guys that you definitely, you got that in your mind, as an evaluator, like, these guys love football, you know what I mean? And you want guys on your team that love football, because once all the other stuff fades and, the stuff, you want guys that really love doing what they do.
Graham, welcome to the
What's
show,
up?
boss.
Appreciate you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, man. We just jumped straight into it. Look, I didn't even say subscribe. So look, subscribe, hit that like button,
Right.
Subscribe, follow the show, follow Dawgs Central, follow everything you got. Anything about us, just follow. We got to get back into it, Graham. We talking about that beatdown that happened December 30th, 63-3.
We were all wrong about the spread.
I thought it would. Yeah, man. Look, bro, when the FSU beat reporters started tweeting pictures of those two defensive tackles in sweats, I was like, man, this is gonna be ugly. Because I thought that was a lot of my thought pattern was those defensive tackles are good. Even though they were missing some other defensive linemen that we knew they'd be missing, I thought Fiske and I forget the other one's name now. I thought those guys were good enough to, hold Georgia's run game somewhat in check for a half or so. And when they took those boys out, it was over with. And it's funny, man. I was texting with after we did our show, I was texting with a few different Florida State media folks that I know, and I was asking one of them about the backups in the secondary, and he was like, listen, these safeties, they ain't gonna tackle. And Milton busted that run. Through the one guy, yeah. And it was it gets to 42-3 at halftime, and the same guy texts me, and he's like, well, Told you they wouldn't tackle. So yeah, it was ugly. I think the FSU people thought it would be uglier than the Georgia people did in some ways, but look, I mean, like it was a celebration, right? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Foss.
No, I interrupted you. Man.
No, that's all I had to say. Really, was I mean, it was a celebration of the program in a lot of ways.
I guess it's just I didn't really pay attention to Florida State that much this year. It still is. It's beyond me to understand how you can go like you can get that bad.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So it brings to questions a few. It makes me ask a couple of questions. Is the ACC that that bad? Like we knew they beat LSU, but LSU
beat Florida with their backup.
Florida was stinky.
No, they were.
Florida was pretty stinky. They had to do most of their lifting in the ACC.
They
know
did.
What I mean?
No, I mean they did. Yeah, for sure. Like Clemson made them look,
and
like Clemson should have won.
Backups matter, and I just didn't think, an undefeated team, you kind of wonder, okay, what kind of level of undefeated was this? You know what I mean? Because they were missing a lot of guys, but I can't think of a scenario where Georgia would get beat by 60.
No, they wouldn't.
Or
That's
30.
not happening. But I will say, in fairness, like they were missing top 2 running backs, top 3 wide receivers, top 2 boundary corners, I think. Both one starting safety, the starting slot corner.
Yeah, that's a lot.
They had I would say probably their top 4 defensive linemen were missing. Like they were missing,
that's crazy.
A whole front line worth of players almost. I think Georgia beats them even with a healthy Jordan Travis at quarterback.
Yeah.
Like I still think Georgia beats them by, multiple touchdowns. Yeah, I would say 14 to 17.
I still say after the game I still feel like it was a 20-point game. Ooh. Just because them guys played, they came in there like lights out. No, they were
ready.
You know what Kirby be telling them guys, but they were like they was out there with their hair on fire.
Did you hear the Kirby radio clip?
Yes, yes.
We don't care. There's nobody up in this bitch. Damn,
yeah,
dude.
Yeah.
It's about to get. Look, listen, man. When I saw that,
he knew it. He knew what it was gonna be.
Yeah, when I saw that and those D tackles walk out in sweats, like I laid a ton of money on Georgia, dude. I mean, I had already laid a bunch of them, like when it was at 13.5 before all the opt-outs were announced.
That was the what you call it?
That was the opening spread.
That was the opening.
I think it ended at 20.
Like 23.
Negative, minus 20.
It got to like 23 right before kickoff, but like I know a guy who he found a prop bet where it paid out 12-1 if you bet for Georgia to win by 43 or more points.
Mm-hmm.
And he bet like $50 and won 600. I mean, like there was a lot of from a gambling perspective, there was a lot of interesting ways to bet that game and take massive advantage of what was happening there. I also thought though that like I'm just going to say this, and Lamar, forgive me if I'm taking us down a rabbit hole you don't want to go down, but look, the third string quarterback for FSU passed for more yards against Georgia without, any of his starting skill players and a lot of his 2 deep than Jalen Milroe passed for against Michigan in the CFP semi. Like, I guess what I'm saying is, in some ways, like they did make some plays in that game. Like the kid that came screaming off the edge on the first drive and like popped Carson and broke that pass up. Like there were still some dudes on the field at times, and they still made some plays, even like some of their freshmen downfield on some catches and stuff. Like that one catch that they dropped in over Daniel Harris was like a perfect throw and catch.
It was perfect. Couldn't cover that any better.
I guess what I'm saying is, like, even with their backup quarterback, because remember, this was the third stringer that we saw. I kind of think they should have been in the playoff, man. I really do. Like, going 13-0 and Bama not being undefeated. Like, Bama, I know they beat Georgia, and that says a lot. But, like, statistically, you look back, that team was not, they were barely top 25 in net yards per play, which is a huge historical indicator of, like, playoff worthiness and who's going to win national titles. They were never that good. And I think from a Georgia standpoint, like, you did not play your best that day. Alabama played fantastic in that SEC championship game.
Yeah, they shot their best shot.
They did, yeah. And I'm like, credit to
won
them.
by 3. Had to go to overtime.
Yeah. Well, I was talking about the SEC championship. Like, I thought they played really well against Georgia.
Yep.
Do you really think that, though?
What?
I think Bama played their best game of the season against Georgia.
I believe they did in the trenches, no doubt about it. But I don't believe that Georgia did themselves any favor, one, playing one of their worst games of the year, and at the same time, the coaches not coaching their best game of the year as well. Yeah. Because I think, and I know we're going to get into that, that Alabama-Michigan game. I think Georgia just gave Harbaugh all the tape that he needed to beat Alabama and to kind of stifle Milroe as much as he could, because they pressured Milroe, something that Georgia didn't do. And Kirby admitted that even at the halftime mark of the SEC championship game. He said, you know what, we did not want to pressure him. We wanted to kind of sit back, allow him to make mistakes, but obviously the kid didn't make mistakes. Then they go out in the second half, they pressured and didn't work. It was too late by that time. You can't change it in midstream. But I don't know. I don't think Alabama necessarily was that much better than Georgia in the SEC championship game. I just think that we played into their hands.
I think they played the best game that they could play.
Yeah. I agree with that.
That's what Bama did. There at no point this season were they better than Georgia, but they played the best game that they could play, and they played the game that they had to play versus Georgia, and Georgia didn't. Georgia did not play the game that they were capable of playing, and they regretted it, and they played like they regretted it, this past weekend. Yeah,
they did.
They wanted to make a statement, and all those guys, and I wish the Florida State guys felt the same way, because they had a reason to feel the same way and come out and try to make a statement. That's what I thought was going to happen when they announced the teams in the game. I was like, oh, this is the pissed off bowl. And those guys didn't give a flip. They was like,
it's a terrible thing to waste.
They're like, the pissed off ball. No, we chilling. We at home.
The day they announced the playoff rankings.
Yeah,
the day they announced the playoff rankings, there was a video that was going around on Twitter, and it was like a live look-in on the FSU football building with the team watching it. And as soon as they announced the playoff field, there was one buddy that just like got up and like strolled out, and I was like, "That dude is done. Like that guy ain't doing 15 more practices. Nah."
But you know what, Graham? Before you got on, that's what we were talking about. Me and George were talking about. When you start looking at the differences between the programs, right? There's programs that can say we're there. There's programs that can say, we're right on the cusp, or we, look what we're building, bringing in recruits. There's something to be said for when a Georgia has all their guys play, and you have a Florida State that says, you know what, we're going to have all these opt-outs. And mind you, Florida State wasn't the only one. You had teams all across the nation doing the same thing, but nobody had more of a game to want to prove something, like Georgia said, than this pissed off bowl, Georgia and Florida State. Those guys you thought would have played, but they didn't. They just kind of packed it all in and said, you know what, that's it for me.
Yeah, dude, I think if they had won that game against Georgia, I think they would have had a legitimate claim to a split national title. I really do. And I think that whole groundswell could have started, and especially if they had gone and beat Georgia by 10 or something, like I don't think they would have, but I'm just saying, like, internally as a team, you got to believe that you can go do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it sucks that
didn't-
they didn't play.
Yeah, I didn't expect them to do that. I thought we had a legitimate pissed off bowl, and it did not turn out. We had one side pissed off, and they showed it.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be a better game just off the strength of, hey, it's an undefeated team. You know what I mean? I just between coaching and the players you have left, I thought it was be at least a better game. But Georgia was really on point on all. They hit on all cylinders in every phase. So I can see how it got to where it did. I didn't know it was going to be that fast though.
Yeah, for me, I think I looked at that game and I kind of feel I've always been anti playoff expansion, but and maybe this is like, if you want like an ESPN conspiracy theory, which I know, a lot of people do subscribe to, like, this did kind of push me over the edge in a way, man, watching a 13-0 team get knocked out and not play. And look, like Alabama, I mean, I've got a friend that calls the college football playoff the Alabama Invitational, and he's not a media member, but like he's just a fan, and like he's makes points. Like Bama has never won a national title at the end of a 15-game season. The only national titles they've ever won in the playoff era were when they set it home and the rest of the country played on conference championship weekend, and they set it home after a loss to Auburn. Like that benefit of the doubt does not get given to really anybody else. Even Georgia, after 2 straight national titles, didn't get it. Like, did not get the benefit of the doubt. And there's no doubt in anyone's mind that Georgia was one of the 4 best teams, but the CFP people, they got up there on selection day and they said, there's this clear difference in quarterback with Jordan Travis out for FSU. And, they referenced FSU running Wildcat against Louisville. Like, bro, Jalen Milroe was a Wildcat quarterback for a lot of that game. He had 17 rush attempts, and Bama couldn't pass protect for him. He had 116 yards passing. Like, I promise you, Florida State could have found a way to get 116 yards passing in that game.
To me.
Facts.
Listen, I know he's a freshman, but he was playing against one of the best defenses in the country, one of the best coaching staffs in the country. So, yes, the results weren't quite there, but I think the quarterback has some talent.
Who, Milroe?
No,
he's talking Glenn.
Dude, he can sling it.
Yeah, I think he has some talent, and I think he would have been better with all of his weapons. I think he would have been better. I think, like, for them to hold Florida State out, that was pretty bad, man. I don't, I think if I from a money standpoint and a pageantry standpoint, they probably, the powers that be probably enjoyed the Michigan Bama game and the outcome and all that, but Bama, it wasn't mid, dude. It wasn't really. There was nothing really, great about it. You know what I mean? About that team, like they didn't show up. They didn't show up any better than I think maybe a full tilt Florida State could have showed up. Had they protected the quarterback. When I say figuratively and literally, protect that freshman QB. I think they could have did decent, at worst.
Well, and if there was a bunch of I mean, if there were different helmets out there on the game, like for this game, if it wasn't the Alabama script A and the Michigan winged yellow blue helmet, like a lot more people in the media would be talking about how this game was kind of assy, because it was kind of assy. Like it was a lot of, bad offense and turnovers and, I mean, shooting yourself in the foot. The game almost ended on a muffed punt safety. Like it was not a well played football game, and that's fine. Like the drama was still there for sure. I will not deny that. But yeah, I mean, like this whole thing has a little bit, at least in my mind, I'm like, well, a 13-0 team isn't getting left out in a 12-team playoff. Georgia is not getting left out in a 12-team playoff, and like that's good. They deserve to play for the national title. And I've always been under the belief that college football had the best regular season in sports because the entire season was the tournament. And, you play throughout and all of that. And so in a way, I could accept like Georgia didn't get in the playoff. The SEC championship was a playoff game for them and they lost it. They lost their first round playoff game. Okay, I can live with that. The problem is that, the committee did this thing and said Florida State's out, even though they won their playoff game. And they said Texas gets to come in with Alabama because they played 3 months ago and Texas won. And Alabama just beat Georgia last night, 12 weeks apart. So that must mean that Texas is better than Georgia. Like this transitive property, bullshit, like that's not how this is supposed to work. You're supposed to stack up two teams next to each other and decide who the better one is. And Georgia had one loss against a team that ended up being a top 4 team. Texas had a loss to an Oklahoma team that was pretty shaky, for a lot of the year and lost a few games and they lost to that Oklahoma team, like in a good game. But I mean, like Texas was shit down the stretch of the season in a lot of games. They almost lost to a TCU team that didn't go to a bowl. They almost lost a lot of games. Like there was not that dominance at all. And at the end of the day, like I'm going to contradict myself in a way here because like this does go in Alabama's favor, but these SEC teams, like they deserve, some credit or some extra look at their record in terms of like who they've beaten. Texas didn't really play anybody all year after they played Bama. They didn't. And the rest, the rest of these guys like Georgia, Bama, I will give them credit. Like their schedules are harder. So this idea that, all losses are equal and all of that is a little insane to me.
Well, Graham, I'm going to tie two things together. First, George brought up, he said, you know what, is the ACC that bad? It's not that bad. They just don't have the depth, right? So they don't have the depth to be able to compete at this level when you don't have your best playing. That's the first thing. Then you talk about the SEC. Well, guess what? The SEC as a whole across the conference has that depth. They have the athletes. They got the guys that are in the trenches that are going to the NFL. They got guys that even are on bad, quote unquote, bad teams can still put in work on any given point, any given day against your conference's best, right? When you look at the SEC, I mean, they finished 5-4, I think, in the bowl games. But take out Alabama, and I think who was the other? I think it was somebody else. They had a real bad bowl loss. Don't know who it was, but the better teams in the SEC dominated. The guys that didn't opt out, they dominated. Not only did they dominate on the field, I mean, it was visible domination, physical, speed. The coaching was much better in a lot of different instances to me. It goes to show you what the SEC really can do. So when you look at what the committee did, the committee said, you know what? We want to make sure, this is tying it all in together. You get Alabama, you get the blue blood. You get Michigan, you get the blue blood. You get Texas, you get all that Texas oil money. There was no possible way they were going to leave out Texas. It wasn't going to happen. You're going into a 12-team playoff. You want all of that Midwestern money going up to the West money. They were going to put Texas in no matter what. It's a travesty that Florida State didn't get in and get an opportunity to at least show what they could do with their best players. That's where the travesty came in for me. Georgia, I mean, look, we kind of made our own bed, right? We were supposed to win that game. We win the game. You don't have to talk about it. They still should have been in back-to-back national champions. They should have been given the benefit of the doubt, at least being the fourth best team. But Florida State should have definitely been in there. With, as you mentioned earlier, Graham, they're top players, even with their backup. I think that they might have been able to hang with Texas. They not going to beat Georgia. I think they probably could have hung with Michigan, quite honestly. I think they could have hung with Alabama if you really look at it from the trenches standpoint. But it's, going to this 12-team playoff, I think it makes it a little bit better. I think now we can kind of put it behind us since this season is over for the Dawgs. It's going to be something that's going to be different to see, different to focus in on, and see how teams kind of navigate this new process, so to speak. I wanted to ask you guys that with the evolution of college football and the evolution of the 12-team playoff, NIL, portal, what is the next standard of college football? We're moving away from the old standard. What is the new standard of college football?
Tell me what you mean by that.
Well, like Graham mentioned, it used to mean something during the entire full season of a schedule. It used to mean something. Now it may not mean as much. You might be able to go 11-2 and still get into a college football playoff and maybe win a national championship. With the portal, do you continue to have that same pageantry with your and love affair with your fellow teammate? I mean, your team, when guys are dipping after their first year, freshman year, they're gone. Guys are saying, "Hey, I'm coming back," then they're not coming back. I mean, what is the evolution of this college football game that we all love?
I think the fans ain't gonna change. The fans are in love with the logo. They're in love with the logo, the history. As far as you were saying about the playoff, you can also look at it this way. With the 14 playoff, there's only a few teams that are vying for those spots. You know what I mean? The only few that even got a shot. The only few that, everybody else is kind of like, it's kind of like you just in it for fun after a certain point. Now, with the addition to the 12-team playoff now, folks playing ball, man. They're trying to get in there. They playing ball late. Typically, your two lost teams are out of it. Period. Now you got your two lost teams. Like you got a Missouri thinking they can get in and knock some people off. And they were talented enough and had enough grit, had enough, good coaching to, maybe do that. And we saw that versus, Ohio State. You know what I mean? Just think about those teams. Just think about Ohio State. Just think about a Missouri. Just think about a Ole Miss, vying for them last spots late in the season. Man, I'm excited for it. I think it's gonna be, great. We're in line for Georgia to be in the playoffs every single year. You know what I mean? Just think about it, man. Just think about all the opportunities maybe Mark Richt might have had. Just like we're headed for that type of, run. So I'm excited about it because it's gonna mean more now.
It just means more, baby. SEC style.
Okay, so let me follow this up. Does it lessen winning a national championship?
Hell no.
If you go, well, hold on a second. Wait a minute. If you go into that tournament, that 12-team tournament, and you got 2 losses, 3 losses, and then all of a sudden you win it. Because kind of like college basketball, you know what I'm saying? Like where you go 35-0, and then all of a sudden you lose in the Elite Eight, and you're not the national champion, but yet You beat the number 1 team in the country a few times. You beat the number 3 team in the country. You were really that dog, but all of a sudden, through this gauntlet,
let me bring it. Let me bring it home for you, Mr. Lovelace. You about to really resonate. This one right here about to really resonate with you.
Yeah, hit me with it. Hit me with it.
Once upon a time, I was on a 13-3 football team in the National Football League, and these guys, I think they were from, Hinesville, Three River, wherever it was at the time.
Some shithole,
They came to Denver and broke my heart as a wild card team.
Yeah.
I think you felt pretty good about that Super Bowl, didn't you? You enjoyed it.
You know what, Big G, I'll say at the time I did.
No, you enjoy it now. You enjoy it now. I'm pretty sure you got a shirt somewhere with that particular Super Bowl on. You know what I mean?
I
still means the same.
I
man.
enjoyed it, bro.
It still means the same, man. That's what. Just think about it. It's 12 teams. It sounds like a lot, but that's only 6 games. You know what I mean? It's not 12 games. You know, when you say 12-team playoffs, most people in my opinion, I think in most people's head, you kind of like halfway think it's 12 games. You think it's so many games. It's not. It's 6 games. It's 6 games. It's 6 games. Is it 6 games? There's got to be a bye, right?
Yeah. So the top 4 seeds get a bye, but they have to be conference champions. And then, basically from there, I mean, you could, the most games that you could play would be 4 extra games if you're
4,
right?
I think it's
No.
3.
It's 4.
3.
Not if you're not getting a bye, right?
Oh, you say if you're not getting a bye.
Yeah.
So
it's a lot of games.
It's too many games for sure. Yeah, I mean, you can play a 17-game season in college football now, which is too much.
That's insane, fellas. I mean, believe me, look, if Georgia were to run the gauntlet and they win the national championship within a 12-team playoff, I'm all for it. But I'm just wondering, when you go through an entire season, and like Graham just talked about it just means more, throughout the entire season from game 1 on, I'm trying to win the SEC title. I'm trying to win the SEC championship game. Then all of a sudden you get me to the playoffs and it's like, okay, my team is dominated. They dominated the best conference. They dominated outside the conference and outside and non-conference games. Then all of a sudden you get me to the playoffs and I'm exhausted. My team's worn down. Injury here, an injury there. Then all of a sudden I lose. Woo! And a team that's like number 11 or number 12 wins it all because they're healthy at the time. I don't know. It's going to be a weird feeling, I think, that people are going to have to kind of get used to, because let's just be honest. If you looked at it this year, maybe Missouri, because you just brought that up, maybe Mizzou could have, thrown a little wrench in everybody's program, because Mizzou had a good ball club, right? And they played all their guys. They really dominated a lot against Ohio State. I think if Ohio State had better quarterback play, things might have been different in that game. But still, in the trenches, Mizzou was tough as nails, tough in the SEC. A team like that gets in and kind of throws a monkey wrench in everything, some people will be a little bit upset about.
Why?
Hey, man,
as a true college football fan, you're gonna love it. But as if it's your team that's got knocked out and you were one of the top 2 or top 3 teams, it's like, man, that sucks, man. After going through the entire season,
I mean, like,
you just gotta win.
That's the problem, though. I mean, like, I think what we're doing in college football is, I mean, we're going into a professional era of the sport, and that's fine. Like, we were just talking about it last week. Like, give the kids $50,000 to play in the bowl game if you want them to not opt out, or more if they're a star quarterback or whatever, This new playoff, okay, like, college football, probably better than any sport over its history, has been pretty good at crowning like like I think we get the best team most years. Even in the 4-team format, like I think we get the best team. Even in the BCS format, no offense to your 2002 13-1 team, George, but like, I think often in the BCS, we got the two best teams and one of them won. There's very few years where you can look back and be like, maybe like 2004 Auburn, you go 13-0 in the SEC and don't get a shot to play for it. That sucked. Okay. There's been a lot of years in the playoff era where I have felt we would be fine with just a 2-team system right now. Like, this is probably one of them, right? Michigan and Washington were the 2 undefeated teams. They're going to play for a national title. Georgia and Bama in 2021, they were very clearly the 2 best teams in the country. We knew that all year long. They ended up playing twice. That's fine. Like, whatever. I think now we're moving to an era where like it's going to be the hottest team at the end of the season that wins the national title in a lot of cases, and that's
interesting, man. I love it because it's going to be some team that's going to get healthy because they didn't play in the conference championship.
Oh yeah,
and they're gonna get in the playoff and whoop somebody. It is going to be pandemonium, and I'm going to love it. I'm going to love it.
Well, and Bama's done that already in the 14th playoff. So if somebody complains about it, be like, well, Alabama, take away their 2017 title, take away, I forget, 2021 they didn't, or no, 2021 they did. I don't remember. There's been a lot of years. I think the good thing for the sport, especially as like content creators that we are and people working in media, look, fandom, fan is short for fanatic, and fans are delusional, right? And so, like, I saw over the summer a bunch of Michigan State fans arguing that, I don't know, some trash ass team they had in the 2010s, like if there had been a 12-team playoff back then, that they would have gotten in and won a national title. In reality, because you saw it with TCU last year, the 4-team format is actually what gives an underdog the best shot because, 8 quarters. Yeah, exactly. 8 quarters is less than 16. But I think what's going to happen is like there will never be more interested people in the sport of college football than there will be this time next year when we got a 12-team playoff going on, and as we get into November, and if it causes I don't know, some Iowa State fan or something to like fully engage all season long and all of that, like I think that is ultimately good for the sport, and I think it's good to bring passion and like it'll be interesting to see the arguments on social media when it's more than just a couple fan bases arguing over who's going to win the national title, because even that 12 seed Tulane or Liberty, like they're going to think, hey, maybe we can do it. Boise State did it once, like maybe we can pull the upset. So it'll be good.
This is far from basketball, but because it's just the dynamics are different. Basketball is set up for Cinderella. Not so much football. We got 350-pound linemen out the wazoo. You got 270-pound linemen out the wazoo. It's different. You know what I mean? But I still like that. There's a chance for a 2-win team. It's probably not gonna be a Cinderella. You know what I mean? They're probably not gonna throw. Still probably not gonna throw Liberty in the mix. It's gonna be, off the top. You got 4 conference champions. That's off the top. So you got what? 8 teams left. And so.
Well, there's 5. Well, I guess there's 4 now because Pac-12 is gone. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That's trash.
Yeah, so I like it. It's gonna affect a lot, man. Just think about, we get to yes, we want to win the SEC championship.
I don't.
But we're in. We'd be in already last year. Just say we take our chances and sit Ladd and sit Brock and all of them in the SEC championship and get healthy for the first round of the playoffs. Like, even if you still might win the SEC championship, like they could have won it last year with a less than full strength team. Just think you take the initiative and sit all your guys that are really hurting, and be full strength for the playoffs. Like it's somebody got friends.
You are you throwing you about to throw some gasoline on a fire that I don't know if we could put out. When you start telling Georgia fans, you start telling SEC fans that it doesn't. I mean, the SEC championship may not matter as much, and guys
It hasn't mattered. It hasn't mattered in a while, man.
It doesn't matter going into this.
It's great to have. It's great to have. Like SEC
from the pure standpoint, people get ticked off by that.
I know, but the SEC is still king. That's the only championship I have. Like I'll cherish that.
It mattered a lot more though back then, bro.
It did. You know what I'm saying? But look down and see a fat SEC ring, and you can tell your kids or whatever about it. It's cool. I think that'll continue to be cool. But in the grand scheme, I think it's going to be interesting how people treat the game. Like the fans are not going to cheer any less for their SEC champion, and they're not going to talk any less shit to opponents. Like they're going to still, put it in Bama's face, put it in Auburn's face. It's still going to be the same. But I think the teams involved are going to approach it differently, probably in a way that fans might not even notice. To them it's just the SEC championship, but it might be some chess games being played behind the scenes that the average fan won't pay attention to.
George, that's my whole thing. When it comes to this evolution of college football, I'm really trying to see who's going to navigate this the best. We already saw Kirby was setting things up a long time ago with wanting to play at Texas, wanting to play in Oklahoma. He was building up the schedule strength, so to speak, even if there was not necessarily a change into a 12-team playoff. But when you look at how will they manage a 12-team playoff, how will they manage the portal, how will they manage NIL, the grand scheme of all of this is going to be the team that navigates it the best will be the team that can actually win the national championship year to year with a healthy mix of homegrown recruits, with a healthy mix of some portal guys, because you can't have, constant turnover. Yes, there's going to be a, flash in the pan team every now and then. It goes out there and pays millions upon millions for, a whole portal team to get into the national, into the playoff structure. But the grand scheme of things, it's going to be the team that can navigate this thing the best and manage it from game one to the national championship game. So I understand what you're saying, that the SEC championship game may not matter, quote unquote, as much to some coaches out there because they're going to be playing this game, this navigating this whole, pitfall of getting to the national championship game. But I'm just here to tell fans, pay attention to that. Pay attention to your favorite coach. Pay attention to Kirby Smart, because he's going to be doing that. He's got to play chess, not checkers, where some of these teams are going to be out there just playing checkers and just trying to become relevant just to get into that 12-team playoff.
It has become a long season, especially for your top programs. You can pretty much just think about it. Like just how, like in the previous format, you knew there are only 6, 7 teams that has a shot at the national title just based on talent. Wow.
Right.
6, 7 teams
got
a shot. It's gonna still be the case.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so a lot of these teams are gonna be in the playoff next year, barring some, we can almost say now who's gonna be in. We got to see if Mizzou's gonna be, as good as they were this year. We got to see is Ole Miss gonna get any better, or things like that. But your top 6, 7, 8 teams, we know who those are gonna be from year to year, and it's just another way to make some more money.
Well, and that's exactly right.
With what we already know. We already know the teams that they're going to be in the playoff. We know.
Well, and I do think, though, like a coach and an NIL collective and an AD, they can sell a fan base, and most importantly, they can sell their biggest boosters, biggest donators on, look, this is what we got coming back for next year. We think if we can get into the portal and make a splash, and we think if we can close with a couple big hits on signing day, let's throw around some cash. Let's flip a couple high school prospects. Let's go get some guys out of the portal, and let's make a run. Let's go to the playoff. And look, in a way, that's self-perpetuating. You make the playoff, you're going to get some more money from that. It can change your fortunes in a college football sense. And especially now, like when, let's be honest, you can go buy a roster. It might not be, it might be a group of hired mercenaries who, like, if they go 13-0 and don't make the playoff, say F this and opt out and don't play against Georgia in the Orange Bowl. But like, you can still go and make a run. And that's what Ole Miss is doing right now. I think that's a good thing. That's a program that has never won anything, never appeared in an SEC championship, have not won an SEC title since like pre-integration, I think. Like, it's interesting to get them in the mix and just see what happens. And so, I think the thing, if you're a Georgia fan, that would frustrate me is if NIL and all of this stuff, all these changes, portal, weren't happening right now. Like, the recruiting classes that Kirby is signing are ridiculous, and they could have double the amount of 5 stars in them than they do if these kids were going just where they want to go based on development and winning, instead of some of these kids going where they feel like they have to go because there's a financial opportunity. And I'm all for them taking that money.
And I get
it's
it.
life-changing money.
I've seen, listen, people have no idea what these kids come from. I was privy to a lot of that, being an NFL scout and being in these meetings. Some of these kids need to take whatever money they could get. Like, it was bad at home for a lot of these kids. More, I'm not gonna say more than not, but a good number of them. You know what I mean? And so, like, I get the decision that these kids are making. I get it 100%.
Well, and I love the fact that, like, now a kid who might be feeling that pressure, like back in your day, a kid who, needs to go get money right now, there was guys that left off your 2002 team, George, that, probably should have stayed in college another year. I think you had guys on that team that left early that went undrafted. And I don't know what their situations were specifically, obviously, but like, that's happened a lot for a long time. And now those guys can either, leverage what they just did the year before to a bigger NIL deal from where they're at, or they can go in the portal and go, get the biggest bag. And like, I'm all for that. Go do it.
Or they can,
good players in college, but it also it's a redistribution of talent every like 6 months in the sport right now. And it's not a massive one. Like the Georgias and the Bamas, the teams that are building through high school recruiting are always going to be the most sustainable. They're going to have the highest floor because of the depth that they've built and all of that. But like, we've seen in this sport what a first round quarterback can do to your win total. It can bump it from 7 to 10 in the right circumstances, right? Like, we've seen where Washington has gone in a couple of years with Penix and some first round wide receivers. Like, anybody can go and acquire that now, and that's interesting. But it also just adds a level of volatility to where, like, I don't know if you're going to have anybody win, like, 3 in 5 years or whatever. We just got to see. I could be wrong, and Kirby will be the one to do it if somebody does, but we got to see.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Look, will you you started talking about Washington, so before we get ready to get up out of here, man, I had some other things. I can go down that portal rabbit hole all day because I think for some of the successes that there's also going to be some failures. I think some guys are making some bad decisions in terms of just taking the money, where maybe staying where you're at, your numbers are going to be better. You're gonna play much better. You're going to have more tape, more film. I mean, there's some guys jumping into some programs with bad quarterback play just for the sake of the name of the program and everything else, and it didn't work out for them. But that's a whole nother story. But let's talk about this championship game real quick. I'm going to say I was right. I told you guys that Michigan was going to dominate Alabama in those trenches. For the most part, they did. Yeah, there was some, some fumbles. There was some hiccups in terms of bad play on both sides. But I just knew that Michigan trenches were going to be a little bit better than Alabama during that game. It turned out to be. We were both right. I mean, all of us were right on that Washington-Texas game shootout. I think it could have gone either way. Whoever got the momentum, quite honestly, was going to win that game. But Washington looked outstanding. Penix looked outstanding, bro. And I'm not even a big Penix fan. It's going to be interesting to see what he does at the next level. But him and that wide receiving crew were outstanding.
He tossed that tater around, Jack.
He made some throws in that game that were like God tier.
Crazy.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Crazy. He's got that funky arm.
Yeah, he's got a weird delivery and everything else, but it just works, man. It works for him. What's your thoughts, man? What's your thoughts going into this game, national championship game next Monday? Michigan, who shouldn't be there. That's a whole nother issue with Connor Stallions being in the building. Connor Stallions was in the building at the Rose Bowl, y'all.
Really?
Yeah, he was there.
Homeboy was there. Him and Chase what is Winovich was there? Come on, man. That's crazy. But you got Michigan going up against Washington. What's y'all thoughts?
It's whoever gives the game their identity.
Mm-hmm.
So if Michigan goes in there and shorten this game and puts this game in a phone booth, they're probably going to win. I'm going to hate it because Michigan fans are being very obnoxious right now. They are. I did not know they could be this obnoxious.
That's the worst fan base.
I thought they got knocked down a peg like a few years ago when we stuffed them in a locker. I thought they understood that, okay, we're not exactly what we think we are. These are big boy. This is big boy ball, but they got here, and if they can make this game their brand of football, then they can win it. But if they let Washington go in there, if Washington stopped the run a little bit, it could get ugly because Washington they're really explosive on offense. I don't think Michigan has the secondary to hang with those guys out there. It could get ugly if Washington can stop the run and get some turnover on downs and things of that nature. I think Washington can grant me what I want, and that is a Washington national championship, so everyone can forget next week, and we won't have to hear anything from Texas, Bama, or Michigan ever.
Hallelujah.
Yes, that would be so great. Because I don't have Washington people talking trash to me. You know what I mean?
No, the only ones that talk trash are saying that they deserve to say "Go Dogs." That's the one.
Yeah, I don't agree with that.
That's
no,
it.
We're the only dog. We're the only dog.
We only dog. What you think, Graham? What you got?
I would like to see Washington win. I think it'd be good for the sport. I guess both of them are going to be in the Big Ten next year, but it does have a different feel if like a true West Coast team a team that literally plays in a stadium next to the Pacific Ocean, wins a national title. I think that, in a way, there's some 2019 LSU vibes there with Washington, where like if things go right, they're going to be impossible to beat. It's a high level of variance when you're talking about like their offense is connecting on, these 30, 40-yard passes over and over at times. And their running back getting hurt at the end of that game, that worries me. I think there's a big drop-off between him and the next running back on that roster. I love Penix's arm. I think they got 3 NFL wide receivers out there, not just NFL wide receivers, but like good NFL wide receivers. I think Odunze is the best wide receiver in college football, and I've thought that for a long time. If his last name was Harrison Jr., then he would have been talked about a lot more. I think it's probably, after seeing what Michigan did to Alabama's OL, I'm a little worried for Washington. Penix is really good in the pocket at like moving and sliding around and not flushing too early and keeping his eyes downfield. And so the flip side of that is like there's no defense that's going to stop what Washington does, because they scheme those wide receivers like they're not elite receivers, even though they are. And they're going to be one-on-one at some point. And like, I think they can win a lot of those. I just, like George said, I don't know if Washington can stop the run. And they didn't really stop the run against Texas, but Sark abandoned it way too early, which he's been known to do throughout his career. I hope Washington wins, but I'm inclined to think Michigan wins a closer game. But there is a scenario where Washington just gets out and runs away from them, and Michigan just can't keep up. Because if they can get in a situation where they force J.J. McCarthy to throw to win, then they will win the football game. Because I've yet to see J.J. McCarthy win a game with his arm.
So what's your score prediction? What you got?
All right, screw it. I'm not going to pick Michigan. I'm going to pick Washington. I'm going to say 30. I'm going to say Washington wins. Well, they don't kick field goals often, so let's say Washington 37. No, Washington 34. Michigan 32. Michigan misses a field goal at the buzzer in a touching tribute to 2022 Ohio State.
George, you didn't give your score. Boss. Who you got?
I don't want to give a score.
I either, man. He pressured me into it.
What did you say?
I said
32. You said what?
34-32. Washington wins.
I say you know what? I'm gonna go in the direction that I don't want to go. I think it's gonna be lower scoring than we probably think. So I'm gonna go 28-24 Washington.
Let's go.
You know what, man? Scared money don't make money. I'm going to tell you all that right now. Washington's going to win this game, and Washington's going to win this game handedly.
Woo! Talk to him.
Okay.
This Washington team reminds me of Ohio State with C.J. Stroud at quarterback and a bevy of wide receivers all over the place, minus Connor Stallions on the sideline giving up information. We all saw that film. We all saw that when they were playing Michigan, that all of a sudden they looking over, and then Michigan gets the signal and they adjust. Ain't gonna be no adjustments in this game. Michigan, they can't stop those wide receivers. They got a good defense. They can pressure you. They can get up. I mean, look, we saw that against Alabama, right? The same thing that Georgia should have been able to do against Milroe. Michigan was able to do against Milroe, keep them off balance. The difference is Penix can sling that ball, y'all. He can escape. He can make throws off platform, and he's got the receivers downfield that can make plays. I'm not necessarily worried about Washington's defense so much because I'm not so impressed by Michigan's offense. McCarthy, he's a game manager. Shout out to Cam. He's a game manager, right? You look at the run game. The run game is what the Big Ten does. They run the football. They're supposed to run the football in the Big Ten. Only Ohio State slings that thing the way that they should sling it when they got a good quarterback back there. But when I look at this game, I'm looking at Washington, nothing to lose, neutral field. Washington wins this thing going away, man. I'm going 41-23. Washington handles them.
That's
and they walk off with a national championship and then walk into the Big Ten asking who's the big dog. And I'll give them the big dog of the Big Ten. They can have that all day. They ain't no big dog. We the only dogs, but it's going to be Washington, and they're going to run away with this one, fellas.
Bro,
I was really impressed by them.
Do you know what kind of tweets I'm going to get off if Washington beats Michigan by 18 points in a national title game? It's going to be incredible.
And it should be.
48 hours. Look, I will say this in defense of your pick, Lamar. You're talking me into it. I do think, look, Texas, we know they have good wide receivers. Like A.D. Mitchell, we know what that dude can do. And he is like healthy all year this year. Xavier Worthy, speedster, burner. They had Whittington. They have a good tight end. Like those, they have weapons. They might have the best wide receiver core this side of Washington, really, Texas. And like, I know that things got shaky at the end and whatnot, but like Washington's defensive backs handled those guys way better than I thought they would. So, and Michigan, like one of the reasons I thought Alabama would get past Michigan is because Michigan's wide receivers are not talented. I mean, I shouldn't say they're not talented, but like they don't have speed. They don't have they're not that dynamic. Like aside from the one guy that everything flows through. I forget. Good God, you know what I'm talking about, right? 13 or whatever.
Yeah,
the leading receiver.
Can't remember the kid's name.
Yeah, but it's just after that, you know, you got a bunch of slow tight ends, and I don't know. I just don't think. I think there is a scenario where Washington's defense really shuts down that passing game. I do think that Michigan's be able to run the ball some, though.
The key is no film.
Roman Wilson is who I'm talking about. Sorry.
No film. Connor Stallions ain't going to be in that building. There ain't no way. No way they allowing that joker in the Houston stadium. It ain't happening.
That's true.
I'm calling everybody I know in H-Town. Look, put that cat on every street corner, every post. Put his picture up. He's not allowed in NRG Stadium. We're going to take care of it for you, Washington, down in H-Town. I'm calling my boys up right now, making sure. I know a lot of boys down at HPD, they're going to take care of things. They ain't going to let him in the building. Ain't going to happen. But that's it, man. That's it. That's the last. That'll be the last time we talk before the national championship game, or last time we do the show. But hey. It's been real. It's been real. Also, folks, make sure you're following the basketball team. Big game this week against Mizzou is in the house. I think that's Saturday, 1 p.m. So we start talking about the transition from football to basketball before the national championship game. The basketball team is getting things going. Foss, you on mute, bro. You sound good, though.
No, I said Mike White.
Mike White. White Mike.
White. Mike White.
Man, we got to get him on the show, man. He'd be fun to talk to. He got to be fun to talk to.
He would. He's a good coach, man. He's doing a really good job. And
yes,
Georgia basketball is worth your attention. The last thing I was going to say, just before we wrap up, is don't be surprised if – I'm not saying it's 100% going to happen, but don't be surprised if Julian Humphrey doesn't end up hitting that transfer portal after all.
It's happened before.
It's happened like yeah.
No, I'm saying it's happened with a big 65 was in that thing.
Oh yeah,
he hopped up. He said, "Oh, it's hot in here."
Went down to Florida State and they had that war chant like on some Bluetooth speaker when he got out of the SUV. It was like, I'm good, man. Turn back around. Stayed in Athens.
Ain't that the truth? All right, fellas, man, it's been real. Until next time, see y'all 100 Sanford, and as always, go Dogs.
Go
Dawgs.
Thank you for listening to the 100 Sanford podcast. Tune in weekly to hear fresh content from the 100 Sanford podcast every Thursday, but also with some pop-up shows every now and then as news breaks. You can also follow the content on our website, www.100sanfordpodcast.com, and email us at dogs@100sanfordpodcast.com. Lastly, reach out to us on social media streams. For Twitter, it's @100Sanford, but on IG, TikTok, Facebook, and other accounts, it's 100 Sanford Podcast. All right, folks, that's it. And as usual, see you at 100 Sanford.